Okay, today I'm going to talk about hub to hub, like airline hub to airline hub plane tickets. My name is Andy Lee Graham, and I've lived in 114 countries for over 25 years of nonstop world travel. I have no home. Okay, I only live as a traveler. Okay, I was laughing the other day. I was helping a woman to buy a plane ticket to Fort Lauderdale and then getting on a cruise ship. And I realized the best thing I could ever do is, while my memory is fresh, to uh, make a video about buying airline tickets. Why? Because air tickets, airfare, they're all very different. And I had a conversation yesterday with a young man that was very, very intelligent. And he said he always buys directly from the airlines. And he asked me how I buy plane tickets. And I said, well, there's no rhyme or reason. I mean, I have to try everything, okay? It's according to where you're at on the planet. One time an airline ticket from the airline can be the best deal, and the next time it could be the worst deal. And there's especially some problems about buying only from the airline because well, they used to be, we used to have consolidator tickets. That means that an airline has a published fare, and then they want to advertise that. And they don't want to ever go below the published fare because they don't want to give a discount. So they allowed these consolidator companies to sell their tickets at a discount. And it wasn't, they were always selling at published fare prices. Okay, now with the aggregators, the Kayaks, the Expedia, the Skyscanner, DoHop, and all these other systems, the way they unload tickets. See, what an airline has to do, like last minute, say they had like 30 extra tickets on the flight, they will lower the price radically and give them off to maybe Expedia, Travelocity, Orbitz. It's not rightly clear on which aggregator they're unloading their last minute tickets. So I have to try all the different systems, Expedia, Kayak, Skyscanner, and I go through probably five to seven different what we call aggregators. An aggregator is a company that brings together like 20, all the airlines and tries to sell them as a group. I remember somebody was, I think it was Delta or something, was denying Orbitz the ability to sell their tickets, and it was really causing Orbitz a lot of problems. But I try to say like hub to hub. Okay, I also take taxis from landmark to landmark. A lot of times people want to be very, very specific with taxis, and I go, you're expecting the taxi to know every single address or location in the city. Try to find like a bank or a, what do you call it? Like one of the best things is probably a pharmacy. But on hub to hub, like I was talking to an airline steward attendant the other day, and she flew with Delta, and I said Delta's hub is, the major hub is, I think, Detroit. And so there's different hubs for different airlines, okay? And so the corporate headquarters is very important too. Okay, but there's a lot of things that go into buying a plane ticket, and it's extremely frustrating. And why is it frustrating? Especially if you're going to buy from the low-cost carriers like Spirit Air, Frontier, Pegasus, Wizz, Ryanair. I was telling this young man the other day, I says, your bag, what he was doing is, there's a thing that's happening right now, is you can take an oversized bag directly to the, in the United States, pretty much, you can take an oversized bag, a backpack, and you can arrive at the gate, and they'll just do one of these sideline checks where they're not actually taking it on the plane. They're checking it at the thing. And this is ridiculous, okay? Every bag should be able to either be a check-on and go into the plane, or it should be checked. But there's a variance here where none of the airline people want to enforce the rules that they don't want to obey themselves. So, but I said, don't try to do that in Europe. Wizz Air will whack you, Pegasus, Ryanair. You'll be paying, they will check you at the gate. Okay, But one of the major goals of the aggregators, or even, well, the low-cost carriers for sure, is they want to frustrate you until you just buy the ticket. Okay, so they know that the average person only has so much patience. Okay, and so how do I deal with this? Well, I only work on buying a ticket like 15 minutes, then I go do something else, and I may try to buy a ticket at almost say in a 24-hour day. There's four times 24. There's every 4 hours I would try to buy a ticket, because they're unloading tickets all through the day. So they have tickets that are on hold by some travel agents. I'm not sure they're actually even doing this anymore, but they're releasing different prices, and they're also checking your IP. You're checking where you're getting on the thing. So one great reason to have a VPN, which I've never used, is to try to say a plane ticket purchased inside the United States can be cheaper than a ticket purchased outside the United States. So I'm trying to constantly refresh. I'll clean my cache and erase the thing. Sometimes I leave it on. Sometimes the airline goes, well, he's tried to check out this price on the ticket like 20 times. Let's unload it at a cheaper price and get him to buy it. And this could be working in cohorts or a partnership with the airlines. The airline says, if this person doesn't buy, the algorithm says, if he doesn't buy it after 10 times, we got to lower the price. And so there's so many variables in this, it's ridiculous. But the worst possible way to buy a plane ticket, in my opinion, it would be to get on at like 5 to 7 to 8 o'clock at night, p.m., and buy a ticket, get on there and buy a plane ticket at this time. This is where everybody gets off work and they try to go buy a plane ticket. And so they elevate the prices. They raise the prices at this time, knowing that it's kind of a naive buyer. Probably the best time to buy a plane ticket is probably, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they know the person's really patient, has all the time in the world, and they're willing to. There's prime time. Prime time costs more. So prime time on the internet is, say, after work from about 5 till 10 o'clock. This is when the prices could be the highest. They also could be the cheapest, and that is always the problem. We never know. So we have to try these different prices. But I only work on buying plane tickets. I will start working to buy a plane ticket probably 3 weeks before I leave. Now, a lot of you, there is an advantage sometimes of buying a plane ticket months ahead. But I will probably never, like, when you go, say I'm buying 1 month ahead, and say right now it's October, to buy the plane ticket in November for the November flight would be cheaper. So there's a price variance between months. So, right now it's, let's see, what is it? I don't know. It's January, I think. No, it's just turned February. So the tickets probably increased in price for January, March, okay, April. And so they got these, the minute that the month changes, like it just changed from January 30th to February 1st. So there's a price variance. This changes. So you have to continually work on buying a plane ticket until what happens? You suddenly see the perfect ticket, and you have to buy it right then. You can't really delay. You have to say, this is what I would consider a good price. But you cannot learn what the good value for a plane ticket is by getting on there one time. And especially if you go, like I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana. My plane tickets are normally from Fort Wayne or Chicago or Detroit, okay? But if I try to just buy a plane ticket from Fort Wayne to Guatemala, and it's at, say, 7 o'clock at night, I'm going to pay a fortune, okay? And it's the first time I tried. They go, he's naive, he's buying on the first click. Let's lay him away, okay? Now, if they see that I'm doing all these different possible combinations, like Toledo Airport, Grand Rapids Airport, South Bend Airport, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Indianapolis. I could go all over the concentric circles around. Sometimes I try to actually jump from, I just realized I can jump from Fort Wayne to Tampa really cheap. Okay, in Tampa to fly into the Latino world is a lot cheaper. But I also knew that a $100 flight from Atlanta is very common. A $100 flight from Chicago and Detroit's really common. And it's getting cheaper to go from Cleveland to Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne is one of the worst possible places to fly out of, okay? But that's where I would ideally fly out. But to get on, and the very first time I get on and buy a ticket, that's the wrong way to do it. It really, to buy a plane ticket is normally for me about a 5 to 7 day process. But I'm not getting on there and working for hours on end. I'm just going on there and checking out different hub-to-hub locations. A hub-to-hub location is Guatemala City's a hub and Chicago's a hub. Detroit's a hub. New York City is one of the biggest hubs on the planet. Fort Lauderdale and Miami, it's a hub. Los Angeles, Las Vegas, these are hubs. So if I fly from hub to hub, it's the cheapest. It's also the same when you're trying to import, export stuff. They have airport to airport. And the airport from major airport to major airport is cheaper than you trying to go to one of these feeder airports. Do you know if your airport is a feeder airport or is it a hub? Okay, so, but it's kind of, I will ping or try different combinations. And people think that it would be the cheapest to go directly from Fort Wayne to Guatemala. No, it could be Fort Wayne to like right now, for me to fly to Cuba or something, they wanted to go from here, from Guatemala to Panama to Cuba. And I'm going, you can go from Cancun to El Salvador to Cuba. To go directly is the more expensive ticket. So the number of layovers. Now you got to be careful because you don't want to, when you see a ticket that says like one ticket with Frontier and another ticket with Spirit, or you're actually buying two tickets, okay? And you're going to have to pay double the baggage fees. And if they lose your bag, they're not going to really care. The first airline loses your bag, the second airline doesn't care. So I continually try to stay on the same airline if possible. I will pay extra money to stay on the airline. But a lot of you, and this is kind of the hilarious part, you'll spend hours and hours trying to buy a plane ticket. And if you just decrease the cost of your hotel, you got to live in a 5-star hotel and you're going to pay $150 a night for a hotel. And if you're going to be on a 10-day vacation at $150, all you got to do to save $500 is go from a $100 hotel to a $150 a night hotel to a $100 night hotel, and you save $500. So you might be better off to concentrate on less social. Some people just have to pay a lot for their hotel room, and they think it's a good idea to get a discount for their plane fare. Really, it's easier to get a discount on the hotel. The substantial difference between a $150 hotel and a $100 is almost a zero in a way. And a lot of times on the $200, $300 night hotels, you're paying for golf course, swimming pools. Are you using them? Okay, and you're paying for all these benefits that you may not be using. A boutique hotel and a lot of the Airbnbs are just really horrible deals often. They're selling the image that you have, that you are being smart, and Airbnbs are now costing more. I just heard that New York City actually outlawed Airbnbs, and they should be. They're competing in a market where there is no, Airbnb should be regulated just like a hotel, especially if you're going to buy a house and do it. I was talking with Cliff, and he said, if they outlawed Airbnbs in Florida, it could bankrupt the state, because there's so many people that own Airbnbs. And see, instead of getting, say, $1,000 a month rent, they get $3,000. Airbnbs have made a lot of really bad purchases on Lake Atitlan into good purchases. There's a lot of people that build their dream houses in absolutely the ridiculous locations. And these people will rent them on Airbnb. So they went from being in complete poverty because there was no way a person that would go by Tuk Tuk or little pickup truck would ever rent in that location because it's a horrible location. But the person doesn't know that in Airbnb. This I always have an onward ticket. I will not buy a one-way ticket without having an onward ticket. Now, I'm very good at knowing how to arrange an onward ticket without actually paying it. There's all sorts of services, but it's no longer possible to buy just a one-way ticket without also, because 1 in 10 times they're going to request that onward ticket, and they're going to sit there at the airport and say, you got to buy the onward ticket. Now, one way I can say that's sort of simple to do it is some of the airlines, some of the aggregators are giving you a 24-hour, kind of like, refusal. You can get a refund within 24 hours. Expedia, maybe. These rules change from country to country, but you have to have internet when you go to the airport. Inside the United States, this might work, and you might find that the internet's not quite working in Togo, West Africa. But direct flights are always the most expensive. I will say that when I get on a plane, I'm always the last person on the plane. Why? I'll be on the last there, and I'll look for an open seat that is the best seat on the plane, and I'll take the best seat. And most of the airline attendants, people know that I'm being on the last one on the plane. Sometimes I'm competing with somebody else to be the last person on the plane. I would never want to be first class and be the first one on the plane and have everybody bump me with their bag on the way through. I think that's absolutely insane to be first class and have everybody whack you with their big butts and their big bags, and they're walking by. This is just not the way to live life. But we need an onward ticket. And there's many ways. You got different onward tickets, but you can never use the same airline. You can't have an onward ticket that is like from a service. And this is why I don't use these services, is they don't really think it through, and they're not really. There is a value to understanding layovers. I right now have a friend that lives in Tampa, and I could go stay with her for like a week, have a layover, and the flight from Tampa to Fort Wayne is like $100, and it's very cheap. And so I could have a layover, but I have all the time in the world. When I do buy a ticket, I'm normally on kayak, and I choose the option 3 days before, 3 days after, and I'm taking a 6-day spread, and I'll work almost a month worth of time, and I'll go and I'll try. So when I'm trying to buy a ticket, I'm going on Wednesday, then I'll switch to Thursday, then Friday, and what I'm doing is I'm continually making that window of 6 days spread out over the whole month. Skyscanner, which is one of the best websites for buying a plane ticket, and it's also not an American-owned website, so it has a different time zone. It's like 12 hours difference, right? And that means they're releasing tickets and buying tickets at different times. Time zone of where the company is located is very important. I realized I could get on kayak.es as Spain, as opposed to kayak English EN, and there was a difference. It's like CNN. What you don't realize is CNN International, CNN Asia, they all give a different news report. They can have a contradictory story. CNN is appealing to the local audience, so in Southeast Asia, they can have one story. In the United States, they can have another story. Don't trust anything on the news. Okay. Consolidators, Landmark Hotel. One of the big deals is, and I kind of feel that any plane fare that is, say you have to buy 2 tickets. Like I don't like to buy tickets. I buy hub to hub, and then I try to take bus to my home. Why? I don't get whacked for that baggage fee. I'm checking a bag hub to hub. What's interesting is I could fly to Africa and they'll allow me a carry-on as part of the ticket. Okay, so a lot of times there are companies that feel that they should always allow not a carry-on, a check bag. Used to be we could have 2 check bags for up to 60 pounds. Now that the mystery, the thing that we don't understand is the bag fees. So until you add the bag fees, nothing matters because they're going to give you a low price ticket, then whack you like Frontier was offering a very cheap price ticket, then $92 for the check bag. Okay, so you got to add all this up. That's why I use a computer. I can have 8, 10 windows open, and I can hold one window for the flight between San Francisco and Monterey. I can hold another ticket between Cancun, and I start constructing the whole ticket. And it's very complicated, but I cannot believe buying a plane ticket with a smartphone is ever smart. Okay, it's got to be. Even if I did that, even if I only had a smartphone, I think I'd go to the library and try to open up 5, 10 different windows. Then take your time, and then have a piece of paper and take notes. One really beneficial service that gives me a lot of brainstorming is Rome to Rio. It'll tell you different possible combinations of ways to get to a place. And Rome to Rio is, I think they got bought out by Booking.com. Booking.com, I think, is now partners with Kayak. It's becoming, pretty soon, they're going to have a monopoly, and it's going to be a trust, and they'll probably raise the prices. But hopefully, they break up some of these companies before they get too sophisticated. What I do is I do a lot of searches on Kayak, and then I buy plane tickets with Expedia, if possible. I very seldom buy from the actual airline. Sometimes I do on Spirit because Spirit is so tricky that they can have a cheaper price on their airline. You just never know. You have to, once you find the airline that's giving you the best deal, then you go directly to the airline and see if they're giving you a good deal. Normally, it's more expensive buying directly from the airline because they feel you're foolish. Okay, a foolish person doesn't see that on an aggregator you're competing with. If you go directly to the airline, you're not competing. Okay, there is no competition. You're only that one airline. Some people say I only use Singapore Air. Okay, bend over. You pay a lot of money. This is absolutely, and then what do they do? The frequent flyer miles. Frequent flyer miles are specifically to help a person working for the company to screw their company. They're going to stay with the same airline all the time. They're making you loyal, and you don't care about the price. You're just going for that extra bonus of frequent flyer miles. People ask me why don't I use frequent flyer miles, and I go, it's ridiculous. They don't do me any good. I do, if somebody wants to bump me, they'll normally put me up in a 5-star hotel for the night. I love to get bumped because I get to stay one night. They pick me up at the airport. They take me to the hotel. Bring me back. They make it really easy. I don't have to think at all. Everything's coordinated. So when volunteering to get bumped on a flight when they oversell a flight, most flights are oversold because people buy a ticket or they buy a round trip ticket and they don't use the second half. That's why the airlines can never be trusted. They want you to buy that round trip ticket so you lose it. And then they can overbook and they get paid for a seat that's not used. It's really the trickiest stuff. I have never in my life been asked when I arrived in a country if I had an onward ticket. I only get asked by the airlines. And they say, oh, the country requires it. Yes, I'm sure that they do if you're from India. But if you're one of the 25 overdeveloped countries, the 25 highly industrialized nations, they want us to come, okay? But they also know that we have enough money to whack us. When I'm in line, people ask me, I never go. When I'm a little bit worried about my plane ticket, there's some extra baggage, weight or something, I'm not quite sure if my bag's heavy enough light enough, I will go at the absolute busiest time and stand in line. Because that standing in line, I might arrive to the airport 3 hours early, but I'm going to wait until the line is so packed that the airline check-in person doesn't have time to check my onward ticket. They don't have time to check my baggage weight. They don't care anything except getting me through fast. There's an art to all of this. There's always a strategy, but generally, whatever you hear that everybody's doing is probably the wrong strategy. If you're doing exactly what everybody's doing, that's not a strategy. That's just following the herd. A strategy is trying to do something in a different way than is expected. Well, every time I have a Patreon, I have a Patreon account now, and it's going to be a link in every single description. If you really believe that I'm an honest person and that you should support me, I would really like it if you became a Patreon. I will not take free plane tickets. I don't take free hotel rooms. I'm not, see, a typical travel writer or travel journalist, they are getting paid a commission by a free plane ticket or a free hotel room. I have only done this a couple times in my life. Never got a free plane ticket. But never trust a travel writer. You know how you know when a travel writer's lying? His mouth is moving. Her mouth is moving. Very few people that make YouTube videos on travel are actually experienced enough to do this, okay? You have to say, how long have they been out? That's traveler's slang. How many times have they traveled around the world? How many times? This gentleman the other day that was really quite clever guy, 23 years old, said, I always buy directly from the airline because it sounds like the airline would give you a better deal. There's no rhyme or reason. You got to try every possible way to get the best plane ticket. But back to the same issue, most of you are paying way too much. The difference between a $50 hotel and a $200 hotel is the price. Okay, that's what the difference is. And often, the more expensive the hotel, the worse the location. Always try to get a hotel in the location where you're going to be doing things. Don't get it where you have to take a taxi to go do what you want to do. It really destroys the culture of the trip. If you have to take a taxi at the destination you're at, move hotels closer to where you're doing stuff so you can have a leisurely walk. Okay, the difference between a $250 hotel and a $100 hotel is $150. Hardly any difference. Okay, I'm Andy Lee Graham. I've lived in 114 countries and I've traveled nonstop for 25 years. In March, just a short time from now, it'll be 26 years. I'm writing a book on Henry David Thoreau, so I'm looking to interview anybody that it feels that they are a teacher or an expert on Henry David Thoreau. I would like to interview you on my channel. Okay, hit that subscribe button, and I really would appreciate if people would be a Patreon supporter. It starts out at $5 a month, and it's a great way to help me to know how to help you. Plus, if you want to ask me a question, it's going to be a lot faster to ask me a question if I know you're a Patreon supporter. Okay, life is good. I'm here and you're not. Why not? Oh, they got so many firecrackers. This has got to be, Lake Atalanta has turned into one of the noisiest places on the planet. Between the tuk-tuks, the dogs, the firecrackers, and the music, very hard to find. I came up here on top of the roof because there's workers working on the building up front, and they went for lunch at 1 o'clock. Okay, it's just amazing how difficult it is. With the invention of the smartphone and the loudspeakers, the noise level, everybody on the planet has a jam box. And then these tuk-tuks here are really loud. And the number of motorcycles, it's really, my sister's bringing down a headset, one of these headset type things that's going to block the noise so that I can actually sit in a coffee shop and read my book without getting annoyed. Okay, but that one reason I'm going to Africa, there's no tourists. What a life we live. I can live anywhere I want, so I live anywhere I want.